Before we begin today's conversation, we'd like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the country on which we meet today, the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation, and recognise their continuing connection to land, waters, and culture. We pay our respects to their elders past, present, and emerging. Sovereignty has never been ceded. It always was and always will be Aboriginal land. My name is Frankie Murphy, and I'm in Year 11 and one of the secretaries of the Fort Street High School SRC Executive. I'm joined by Barisha Tashnan, who is our publicity officer. Today we'll be in conversation with Erin O'Leary, an Indigenous activist who is one of the founders of the youth-led grassroots initiative, Youth Against Sexual Violence. We're very glad to have you join us today, Erin. So you've been advocating for a myriad of social issues such as Indigenous rights, climate change, injustices within our criminal justice system, and justice for survivors of sexual violence. You're also our age, which is incredibly inspiring. And would you be able to tell us a little bit more about yourself and what you do?
I'm Erin O'Leary. I'm a Dhunghutti woman, an activist. I'm the co-founder of Youth Survivors for Justice, which is now known as Youth Against Sexual Violence Australia. We've gone nationwide, which is pretty cool. You pretty much hit the nail on the head. I began as an activist, or I don't really know the starting point because I've been pretty angry and passionate about issues like climate change and obviously Indigenous justice since probably, I think I did my first speech on climate change when I was about 9. And my new kind of campaign or grassroots initiative that I've been involved in is trying to achieve justice and accountability for survivors of sexual violence.
Oh, this all sounds absolutely amazing. Thank you for doing what you do. It requires so much courage and hard work. So we've gathered a bunch of questions from students across New South Wales. Frankie, would you like to kick off this Q&A?
Our first question is, what made you so passionate about the things that you advocate for?
Well, I think growing up in a place where issues like climate change or Black deaths in custody aren't just things that you hear about, they're things that you see, feel, and experience day to day. And I think there's like a certain sense of like unrest born out of circumstances like that. And obviously there's that disheartening feeling of knowing that decisions about your land and your people are being made by wealthy individuals that have no interest in protecting what is sacred to you, and they're more interested in protecting their short-term profits over your literal future and the future of your people and land.
What are the main things you hope to see in the future for Indigenous rights, and what do you think are the barriers in achieving these?
The main things, I think, there are so many things. Land back would be a very good place to start. Putting the land back in our hands, the people that actually care for it and want to nurture it. We're so attached to our land, it's like picking up a piece of dirt and knowing that this is where you come from and this is where you'll end up. So I think land back would be a good place to start. But Black deaths in custody, like the genocide has never stopped. It began with, stealing our land, killing our people, taking our children, and now it's throwing our brothers and sisters in jail.
It's really nice to hear from someone who's like our age and has such like a wide knowledge about these kind of issues. What advice do you have for young people hoping to start campaigns for issues they are passionate in, within their school or community?
The first thing you should do is try and find people who share your beliefs and want to see the same changes you do. Petitions are really good places to start. It's a good way to getting the word out there. Petitions spread like wildfire. Like, you ask one person to share something and the next, and then just, it's a good way of getting your message and what your demands out there. Also, contacting, MPs or, you could even contact me. Your SRC has my email. If you ever need anything to get kickstarted or help out with, your, grassroots early initiative or campaign, I'd love to, offer my wisdom or assistance. So I think I'd say petition, change.com.org, whatever it is, or GetUp. GetUp Australia is another really good way of, raising funds and also getting signatures. And that GetUp is actually like, they have people and consultants that actually support you in your campaign and help you figure out ways of, other other than just social media, but, like printing posters, organizing rallies.
Oh, that's really awesome. How valuable do you think that the youth is in creating change, and how would you say the youth needs to act in driving change?
Oh, I think the youth is so, so valuable. I mean, we have been born into a world where we have had nothing to do with the decisions made before us, and we don't have a lot of say politically in the decisions being made for us in our future. And so we kind of have to take the initiative and take to the streets to just kind of be heard. And I mean, you look in the past as well, it's the youth that gets fired up and is like, yeah, no, we're not going to take this anymore. This is not the kind of, world, or these aren't the conditions I want to grow up in. Yeah, so I think that's so valuable.
What are the challenges that you've faced during your advocacy?
Well, there's a few. There's definitely the whole thing about older people not taking you as seriously, but I haven't really experienced that so much within the kind of activist circles or community. It's people get a bit shocked by how old I am, and they're like, oh, wow. But it hasn't, within that circle, it hasn't stopped me from doing anything, but definitely outside, trying to help other people, like your teachers or your even family members understand that, like, I'm not just a kid. I think, yeah, I've faced a little bit here and there. But overall, I think people have been pretty receptive to what I have to say. And I've had like some really, really amazing older activists that have been there to guide me. And when I was 15, I had no idea how to put in a Form 1 or what even that. I didn't even know you had to apply to have a protest. And I think that has a lot to do with SS4C. I think SS4C really did kind of like pave the way for young activists and helped us get taken seriously,
Obviously, you've done quite a lot in your activism, and I've seen it. I'm sure a lot of people have seen it as well that we all know of. How would you describe the importance of this activism to people our age who just like don't really see its value?
Well, you like weekends, right? Left-wing activism is the reason we have weekends. It's the reason why, we're allowed to vote. It's the reason why George Floyd didn't become another statistic and another number. Yeah, without activism gave me a voice and a platform. And I think, climate anxiety is incredibly real. And without it, like without activism, I would feel incredibly hopeless. And like, I would feel like there's no hope at all. And I think it's very ignorant to not see the importance of activism. It's the reason why we have so many rights today. Like striking and protesting is the reason why we've even taken any steps towards action on climate change. Not that we've taken enough, but it's literally like the way we've progressed.
Well, yeah, I think your activism has definitely helped like spread a lot of awareness about a lot of issues. And, to that point, what would you say is the most effective way of spreading the message about the prevalence of sexual violence in our communities?
I think, social media is incredibly, when used right, it's an incredible tool. It's all in front of us, we'd open our phones and we, instead of like having to kind of like search for this information, it's all right in front of us. And I think social media is a really good place to kind of spread awareness, but I also think education in schools and kind of starting that as early as possible, not just consent education, but also understanding the systemic roots of sexism and misogyny and why rape culture is the way it is and why it even is a culture.
So how did you get involved in Youth Survivors for Justice and all your other activism?
So I began doing, it was around probably the climate strikes and stuff. I did a little bit of SS4C stuff. That's where I got like introduced to activism and organizing. But then I found a group called Solidarity, and we branched across lots of different social justice issues, and they shared my beliefs and they shared my politics. And from there, another activist in Solidarity named Patty Gibson introduced me to Danny, the to my founder. And within 4 days after our first meeting, literally like our first meeting, first time we had ever met, we had organized a rally. And then from there, we had to put a name to ourselves, and then we got some more staunch survivors and activists on board. And then we turned into Youth Survivors for Justice and now Youth Against Sexual Violence Australia. So yeah, that's pretty much how I got going.
How did you feel about the sexual assault allegations in our federal parliament earlier this year?
I think it's a very good example of the rod at the top and understanding like systemic nature of sexism. I think, you know, millions are disgusted by the crimes that have been committed in the back rooms of Parliament. But I think what we need to remember is that so much of the sexism that women face every single day is a product of the crimes that happen on the parliamentary floor itself. You know, when the government votes to, you know, withdraw funding to 1-800-RESPECT or privatize it, or, you know, even attacking casual workers, because, you know, if you have an unstable job, you know, you're not going to be as inclined to leave your abusive partner if you don't know if you're going to be able to, you know, like put food on the table for your children, you know, when you've got an unstable job. But I think it also goes to show the hypocrisy of our government and the Liberal government, and how, you know, a rapist, you know, multiple rapists are still able to have a career and haven't lost their jobs or their power at all. And it's a real slap in the face to survivors all across Australia, because it's like, you know, if you know, someone so in the public eye, you know, only gets a slap on the wrist, how are you going to have any confidence in going to the police and reporting, you know, a person that has sexually assaulted or raped you? But yeah, disgusted and continually disgusted by it. Yeah.
What do you hope to see from young people in terms of the push for justice for survivors of sexual violence?
I think attending rallies is really important. I know people don't really see their power on an individual level, but I think attending rallies, speaking up, you know, sharing petitions, signing petitions, kind of like, you know, put age aside for a second and know that, like, you know, your voice is still a voice. And you know what you're talking about, you know what you've been through, and you should not be scared to speak up. And you've got, you know, there are plenty of people that are there to support you. And I think, yeah, the youth has plenty to do, but I think, you know, when we can have rallies again, COVID safe ones, of course, I think I really urge people to turn up and be there and, you know, have a voice and have a say.
So to give people more of a voice, do you think that young people should be given the vote? And if so, should it be compulsory? And what age do you think?
I think, not to make it too complicated, but I don't think it should necessarily be compulsory to a 16-year-old. But I think the option should be there. You know, there are 14-year-olds working at Macca's and getting their, you know, paid, you know, getting taxed on their pay, but they have no choice in where that goes, where that, you know, that tax goes and who that goes to. I don't think it should be compulsory to a 16-year-old, but, you know, it is easy to vote now. You know, you can just kind of go online and do it. So yeah, I also think if, you know, if younger people do have the opportunity to vote, then we'll have some more younger representation in Parliament. I do think 16-year-olds should be allowed to vote. I might be biased, but yeah, I do think so.
On that note, how do you generally feel about our generation, Generation Z?
Honestly, I have a lot of hope. You know, our generation has so much information available to us, like through social media, and pretty much every injustice there is one Google away. And also, you know, we're in a position where we have no excuse to be ignorant. Like, we're having these huge historical events unfolding before us. And like, this generation has gone through it. You know, we've had to live through a pandemic. We've had to live through catastrophic bushfires. You know, our generation watched George Floyd die. We saw and joined the millions of people across the world that took to the streets demanding justice for Black lives. And we were the millions of people that took to the streets demanding climate action. like, I really think our generation is over being compliant and silent. And I think we have no choice but to be the change makers. Like, we have to. We have to be the change makers. And I think now's a good time to start.
So our final question for you, Erin, is what would you say to politicians, like directly to our politicians? What would you like to say to them?
Open your eyes, open your ears. It's not about you, it's about us. It really does depend what politician you're talking to. Because I have some things I'd like to say to Scott Morrison, but then Jenny Leong is my bestie, and I think she's amazing, and I think she does a lot for her community and us. But yeah, I'd say, hey, listen to us, listen to the youth. We're not just babbling, we know what we're talking about, and we're concerned and we're worried for our future, and we want you to be worried for our future as well, because you should be. You know, the IPCC report, I don't know if you read it, ScoMo, but I did. I'm pretty sure it says code red for humanity.
Yes.
So yeah, please, maybe don't drill those 850 new gas wells on Gomeroi land in the Narrabri. Maybe, you know, offshore wind might be a good idea.
Well, this brings us to the end of this interview. Thank you so much for joining us today. You've set an absolutely wonderful example of what youth advocacy looks like. And we thank you for all your hard work and dedication to your community. We are wishing you all the best on your future endeavours and can't wait to see what else you do. Take care, and we hope to catch you another time.
Thank you. Bye-bye.